everyone to Software Spotlight, your front row seat to the latest innovations in software for small business. I'm Michael Burnswig, your host, and each week we're joined by executives at leading software companies to get an insider's perspective on the emerging technologies, business strategies, and market trends shaping the future. Tune in to stay ahead of the curve on leveraging software to boost productivity and growth in your business. Be sure to visit our website, softwareoasis.com, to access our free weekly newsletter and sign up for our upcoming software webinar series. Also, be sure to subscribe to our live stream at Software Oasis on YouTube to keep up to date on our live streams. So, joining us today, we have a very special guest, Bryan Clayton. He's the co founder and CEO of GreenPal, an online marketplace connecting homeowners with lawn care professionals across the country. With over 300,000 active users completing thousands of transactions daily, GreenPal has been dubbed the Uber of lawn care. Before GreenPal, Bryan founded and sold one of Tennessee's largest landscaping companies, so he completely gets it from the inside out, and his expertise lies in entrepreneurship, small business growth, marketing, bootstrapping, and profitability. So, with that introduction, Bryan, welcome to the podcast.
Michael, great to be here. Thanks for having me on your show.
Yeah, so happy to have a unique perspective on a very different concept for our listeners. I know, over the years, so many different startups have tried to connect with the Uber-like model for different services and all, but clearly you have succeeded in what you're doing. So I was hoping you could give us a little bit of the backstory and kind of fill in the blanks for our listeners.
Awesome. Yeah. So, for those that don't know who I am, I'm Bryan Clayton. I'm CEO of GreenPal, and GreenPal is a mobile app that works like DoorDash or Instacart or Uber, but for lawn maintenance services. So, if you're a homeowner and you need a lawn mowing service, rather than calling all over Craigslist or Facebook or Yelp or something like that, you can just download GreenPal. You pop your address in, someone comes out and takes care of it for you. And GreenPal is a 10-year overnight success. My two co-founders and I have been at this for a little over a decade, and we've grown it from just a handful of people using it in our hometown of Nashville, Tennessee, to now nationwide in the United States and around 300,000 people using it every week for lawn care services. And it started off very humbly, like pushing a rope up a mountain. It was very challenging figuring out how to get the marketplace to work and how to balance the wants and needs of homeowners and lawn care professionals. But little by little, we kind of just became a problem solving machine and made it better and better and better, and to where now today it works pretty good, where you just download it, you pop your address in, and someone comes and mows your yard for you.
Yeah, and I think that is the key to, any type of business is iterating and, small updates and tweaks and things like that, taking in customer feedback, figuring out the pain points on both ends, whether it's for, your service providers or for their end customers and making the experience better. So, initially, obviously, you sold your last business. So you had a deep understanding of what it meant to be on the front lines of lawn care. But what was it that inspired you to jump back in and take it to another level?
Yeah. So growing my first company, which was a landscaping business, uh, I learned a lot of kind of the, I guess, block and tackling of what it takes to get a business going. Grew that business to around 150 employees, eventually getting it over 10 million a year in sales. And then it was acquired by a national company in the landscaping industry. And so seeing that business from just me and a push mower to me and 150 people, I learned how to, my management style, my leadership style, branding, marketing, things like that. And I sold it, and I thought, okay, that was fun, but what now? I need another mission. I need another reason to get out of bed in the morning. I need another purpose, because my business was
Sure.
my purpose. My business, my people that were in the company were why I got out of bed every morning, and that was gone. And so it was kind of like this weird existential thing that I went through where I no longer had a reason to get out of bed. I know there was no longer the answer of if it weren't for me, then what? And the answer to that question always has
Sure.
been my project, my business, my baby. And so I remember I was going to a conference, and it's 2011 or 12, and I was going to San Francisco for a conference. And I heard about this Uber thing, and I downloaded the app, and it was just magical. This car just showed up and out of nowhere and just took me to my hotel, and I thought, this is incredible. This is the future, and I don't know how long it's going to take, but at a certain point in time, the phone will be the remote control for your life, and you'll just use it, and not only things digitally will happen, but things in the real world will happen. It's not just about atoms, it's about bits. And I thought, somebody's going to build a marketplace to make this industry that I know run as smooth as this. Why can't that be me? And it was kind of naivete as an asset. I didn't really understand how challenging it was going to be to build that. But
Sure.
I told two friends about it. I said, "Hey, listen, I just sold my landscaping business, and I'm thinking about starting a tech company. I don't know the first thing about starting a tech company, but here's my idea." And they said, "Dude, that's awesome. I will quit my job tomorrow, and I will start that with you."
I love it.
And they did, and it was probably a very foolish, risky decision, but they did. And so the three of us set off on this path to build this marketplace, to build this app. And none of us knew how to code. None of us had ever built a website before, but we didn't let that stop us. And we taught ourselves how to code, taught ourselves how to design software, how to build software. Took about 3 years, but we got the first version out the door and started recruiting people to use it, and never looked back since.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge lesson in life. Two things. A, you have to have a reason for getting up out of bed every day, and a focus, and you have to be excited about what you're doing. You have to enjoy each day and where you're heading. And the second lesson there, I think, is never let not a lack of knowledge or not understanding how to do something stop you. Just pick a direction, head in that direction, figure out the details along the way. And I'll be quite honest with you, 6 months ago I had never done a podcast in my life, and I said, I guess I need a microphone, and from there it moved forward. But I think at a high level, any individual in any industry, no matter where they're at, just needs to pick the direction and create their own future. It's not something that's out of reach for anyone. So
I agree, man. I agree. We don't need titles. You don't have to be an engineer. You don't have to be a designer. You don't have to be an accountant. You don't have to be a podcaster. You don't have to have the title of these things to get started and do them. And I heard it described the other day. It's lead bullets, not silver bullets. And and so just get in there, start putting in the reps, start bumping up against whatever it is, and learning as you go and getting better and better. And then you become that thing. And 25 years ago, when I was starting my landscaping business, and none of this stuff existed, and so it was a lot harder to become a software developer or to become a designer, to become something. But nowadays, with YouTube University, you can learn anything for free. And so it's really the best time that I've ever known to start a business, to start on a new path.
you bet. I've even fixed my own refrigerator. So
Yeah, exactly. What a time to be alive.
right, how cool. But at a high level, I think another interesting thing when you think about it, looking back, all of the low code, no code tools that we take for granted today did not exist. If you were building an app, you were coding, from scratch. Possibly using some of the early platforms, but really the tech was developing at that point. It's
Yeah,
not like
totally.
it is today. Anybody could launch an app. I mean, I think one of the interesting things, and something I saw with my last company, was at a very high level, a lot of the things that we take for granted, just being able to integrate with different payment methods. I mean, let's face it, anybody can, out of the box, just set up an integration with Stripe, and you are off to the races with any type of payment method you could imagine, and then some. Whereas in the days of old, you had to integrate every single payment method one off, apply to each of the different payment companies, get accepted. There was a whole other challenge on that end of it. So as far as the app itself, it sounds like it solves a lot of problems on both ends. But can you talk a little bit more about the day in the life of someone who is a service professional, with a route of customers and lawns, and the challenges, the crew, the paperwork. What was life like before, and maybe walk me through the day after using GreenPal?
Yeah, it's a really good question because that's where we start. That's where we started when we built this platform. We knew that we needed to solve the problems of the service provider, of the professional first, and then the consumer experience would follow from that. So, put another way, vendors, lawn pros had to love it in order for us to have a product. And if they didn't, then you would just be spinning your wheels. You would never have a delightful customer experience. And this is why a lot of Uber for X ideas failed. There was Uber for everything for a while there. There was Uber for home cleaning, Uber for car washing, Uber for laundry service, and none of them really worked out because, in my belief, they didn't build from the service provider first and then the consumer second. They took it from the inverse. And the reality is that if you're using Uber for home cleaning, you don't care how good the screen interface looks and how well it's designed and how well the technology works. You just care, did the grout in my bathtub get cleaned? It was green. Now I want it to be white. And like, that's all I care about. I don't care about
Right.
how slick the technology is. And in a weird way, they didn't get that right. And so that's what we focused on. We focused on, okay, life as a small business owner in this industry sucks. It's hard. It's like you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning every morning, you're sharpening lawn mowing blades, like customers are always complaining, there's rain, there's competition, the margins are super thin, gas prices are always going up. You're always trying to like figure out how to navigate the best way through town to get from stop to stop. You're always trying to get customers nearby the ones you already have and not across town. And then you're trying to get paid for the work that you did. That's actually one of the hardest. Like, you have to do the work, and then like you have to like do the work all over again to get paid for the work. It's very
Right,
weird.
right,
It's like
right. Yeah.
it's like half the work is just getting paid for the work you did, and
And
it's a very
keeping
strange.
track of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then at night, and then you work 12 hours a day mowing yards. You smell like gasoline and grass clippings, and your back hurts, and you have calluses on your hands, and then you get to sit at your kitchen table till about 11 o'clock doing bookkeeping, and you go to bed pissed off because a bunch of people haven't paid you, and payroll is due on Friday, and you don't have enough money in the bank. That's the typical day in the life of a
And I
small
think
bit.
that a lot of entrepreneurs resonate with that exact message, that they're saying that's my life.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that sounds familiar. Well, that's what it's like running a lawn mowing business, and so GreenPal can't solve all those problems, but we need to pick off and solve the ones that we can, and we set out to materially improve the livelihood of that lawn care service professional. And so we set out to say, okay, well, what are some ways that we can improve their life? Well, we can, first off, let's just take marketing and getting new customers completely off the table. We're going to handle that. We're going to go after all of the customers in their town, and we're going to get them on the platform, and then we're going to deliver them on a silver platter the ones that are nearby the stops they already have. So if they have 10 lawns on Main Street, we're going to be trying to drive them more lawns on Main Street. And so that route density enables them to spend less time in traffic, spend less time on fuel, or spend less money on fuel, and make more money with less headache. So that's the
Sure.
first thing. So now they don't have to try to figure out, how do I run search engine optimization, or how do I run an AdWords campaign, or how do I run a Facebook campaign, and so on. We abstract all of that away. And then so that's the first thing. The second thing is how do we organize all of this mess? How do I know where I'm supposed to be and where and when and where? Like, literally to this day, 99% of this is done with a calendar, and with a pencil, with an eraser, and you write it down in a block, and you're like, okay, I got to do these 10 stops. Oh, it rained. Let me erase them. Let me move them over here. So we built a system that automates all of that to where, okay, Mrs. Smith booked every 2 weeks until the end of November. It's going to show up on your calendar every other Thursday. And if it rains, it automatically adjusts for that. And keeping all of this stuff organized as to where you need to be and on what days and at what cadence and what customers are wanting, it's all in one place. So it's like a CRM and a scheduling tool. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing is, after you get done with each job, you upload a photo onto the system. Your client sees that, they approve it and pay it right on the system. And then you get paid in 24 hours on a rolling basis. There's not this end of the month invoicing where it's like, hey, I was there 3 times this month. And then they say, no, you were only here 2. And no, I was there 3. Oh, well, I'm looking on my Ring camera and I don't see you there. Like literally these conversations happen.
Yeah.
It's like, no. And so it's like these conversations don't happen anymore. And there is no more accounts receivable. It's you get paid within 24 hours of every stop that you do. And so those are the 3 things that we set out to tackle, where we thought we could have the most impact to improve the livelihood of a service provider and solve problems in their life. And then attract them to the platform, get them engaged with it. They love to use it. And then a delightful customer experience occurs where they can just order these folks off the shelf, kind of like ordering something on Amazon. You can order a lawn mowing service like you can Chinese food on DoorDash. And so that's how we attached. That's how we approached it. How we attacked it. It took a long time. It took about 5 years to go from nothing to what I just described,
Sure.
and then another 5 years to get scale behind that. But yeah, that's how it happened. 10-year overnight success.
And Bryan, I'll tell you, I feel like I want to hang up the microphone and start a lawn care business.
Well, it's funny. I have a little theory about that. I think that I believe that within 5 years, plumbers will make more than lawyers. I think we're going to see a reversion to trades and service-based businesses, particularly blue-collar ones, in terms of just how lucrative they're going to become. Because we're seeing a trend where, over the last 20, 30 years, people have gone away from those types of businesses and gone towards white-collar businesses, and those jobs are going to dry up. And so people are going to come back to these more practical, lucrative service-based businesses. So yeah, you might be right. It could.
Yeah. I mean, I think services, entertainment, restaurants, all of that is really the future. And I think at a different level, traditional offices and office buildings and malls and things like that are kind of going by the wayside. So there's clearly a big shift in our country. Does your solution, are you set up across the US, or what's the region that you service?
Yeah, so every city in the United States if you live in a town with over 15,000 people, GreenPal is installed there. So we have contractors that are using the platform where if you're a consumer, you can hire them right off the shelf. And to your earlier point, one of my favorite Jeff Bezos quotes, he says, I don't really think about what's going to change. I think about the things that don't change. I think about the things that are never going to change. And so it's like, what's never going to change? The people are always going to need to have their leaky pipe fixed. AI can't fix that. People are always, the grass is never going to stop mowing. Maybe at some point robots may mow it, but until we get Rosie from the Jetsons cleaning the inside of the house, I don't know that we're going to have robotics take care of the outside just yet. But so I like that. I think about that in these times of where like AI is taking over everything and everybody has anxiety around all of this change. I think if you can look at it from the inverse, like Bezos said, and just focus on the things that will never change, and just focus there and work really hard on those, I think is a good bet.
That makes a ton of sense. So if I'm a small, lawn service in any town USA, I maybe have 100 or 200 accounts. And I'm onboarding onto the platform. What do I do with those accounts, and how does your system scale up to fill in the blanks and add more accounts to my account base?
So we try to keep it flexible. Some contractors bring their existing base onto GreenPal because they don't want to do the bookkeeping on the side or in a separate
Right.
system. They want one system. Some run two systems. They'll say, okay, well, I've got my GreenPal book of business over here, and I've got my analog book of business over here. And as time goes on, this pile gets bigger than this one, and so then slowly they bring it over. And then for others, it's the inverse. Uh, you might have a company that's been around for 10 years. Maybe they're doing $1 million a year in sales, and they say, well, I want to launch another crew. I don't want to hire another salesperson. I'm going to have a GreenPal crew, and so I'm going to have this crew only do GreenPal stuff. And so they run a small GreenPal kind of ancillary system. So it runs the full spectrum. But our bread and butter is the solo operator that maybe is just getting started, that has 10 customers and wants 100 and doesn't know how to get to 100 or doesn't really want to work nights and weekends on their marketing system to get to 100. And so it's our job to help them get to 100 customers every week and help them do it in a very straightforward manner to where all they got to do is just do a good job servicing their clients, and then the system takes care of the rest.
And is there some sort of feedback mechanism within the system so that clients that are happy can leave feedback, clients that aren't happy can, provide feedback as well?
Really, the feedback loops is what drives a half or maybe more of the value of why the system is important. Because these feedback loops don't really exist in the analog world. Yeah, we've got Yelp and Google reviews and Facebook reviews, and maybe if a pissed off customer is upset because somebody stood them up or something, they might go leave a negative review somewhere. And so some of this is getting captured, but with GreenPal, everything's getting captured. And so what I mean by that is um, it's the system's job to understand these are the reliable lawn mowing contractors in Boise, Idaho that you can hire. This Joe's Lawn Service shows up 98% of the time because we measure that. We know that he shows up and marks complete the jobs on his schedule 98% of the time. Steve's Lawn Care Service shows up 60% of the time, but he's $10 cheaper, so you can weigh that out. If you want reliability or price,
Right.
and then also you can see, okay, well, this one gets booked for a second, third, and fourth visit for ongoing visits 80% of the time, but this one only gets booked for ongoing service 12% of the time. So that's an indicator of were people happy with their services? They kept working with them or not? And then we also have the traditional 5-star review system that everybody is accustomed to at this point. More and more, that's becoming less helpful because we live in like a world where it's 1 or 5 stars,
Yeah.
everything, and so it's there. It's just one more data
Yeah,
point.
but you have a different level of granularity with your feedback system,
Right.
which is
But the real important stuff is, do they show up and do people keep working with them?
right.
And no, this data doesn't exist anywhere else for this vertical, and it's only because we close the entire loop on it and end to end that we're able to measure and score the reliability of these service pros.
Yeah, and at a high level, it adds transparency and having, a net promoter score so people can actually see, how, local companies in their area are really performing,
Right. And here's the weird here's the
legit.
weird thing.
Yeah.
Here's the weird thing. It's a layer of accountability for
Yeah, on
service
both. Yeah.
professionals. They are their own boss,
Yeah.
but let's let's say you worked 10 hours yesterday, your back hurts, and I have lived this, and you'll say, oh man, do I really want to get out there and mow all my customers today, or I can just push them the next week. um, well, now you have a system that says, okay, yeah, you do whatever you want. You're a small business owner, but your
You're going
your
to get the
rating is going to
feedback.
go down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's a little layer. It's not a boss. It's not a heavy-handed thing, but it's a little layer of accountability that kind of nudges us in the right direction.
And how does your team go about bringing aboard clients for these contractors? What is the magic or the secret sauce there?
The distribution, the awareness, the getting the product into people's hands when they need it is the hardest part of it all. in fact, it's 10 times harder than this building the system in the first place. I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and we get about 100 people a week move here because they all want to be the next Luke Bryan or whoever. They all want to be the next big country music star. And so they think that oh, I got to learn how to write a song. Okay, that's hard. I got to learn how to write a song and play the guitar. That's hard. I got to learn how to write a song, play the guitar, and sing at the same time, live. All of that's hard. And I got to work on my image, all these things, and I got to save up time to cut an album. All of these things are super hard. And then you realize, actually, no, that was all the easy stuff. The hard thing is to get 100 people to show up at a show.
Right.
That's the hard part. And that's actually 100 times harder than all that other stuff was. And so building a new technology product is just like that. You think the hard, this was my experience of it. You think the hard part of it is, I got to learn how to code. I got to learn how to design software. I got to learn how to look at analytics, and I got to learn how to do stuff like SEO and conversion rate optimization and all this stuff. And that's all easy. Like getting 100 people to put a credit card in the system and continue to use it is the hard part. And so we were smacked in the face with this the first year, and the way we solved it was just through trial and error. We tried everything. First thing we did was we passed out door flyers all over Nashville, Tennessee, hundreds of thousands of these things to get our first 500 people to try it out. And then we would talk to these people, and they would always tell us, well, I would like ask friends and family for a recommendation, and then out of like desperation, I would go to Google and just like type lawn mowing service near me. We kept hearing that over and over again. So we thought, well, maybe we try to compete in Google. And then we started looking at that, and we're like, damn, this is hard. This is insanely hard. And so then we started peeling away the layers of the onion of what it takes to build an inbound content marketing strategy. And it was overwhelming, but we started very, very small, where we started developing content for not Lawn Care Services Nashville, couldn't compete for that, but Lawn Care Services Smyrna, Hermitage, Bellevue, Goodlettsville, Murfreesboro. These are towns around Nashville.
Right.
So we built from the bottom up, got a little bit of traction. Then we got the main big metro city. Then we started to understand a little bit of a repeatable framework, and we did that in Atlanta. Took us about a year to figure that out. Then we did it in our third city, Tampa. And then by then we kind of figured, okay, this is how we could build an inbound content marketing strategy that would work in every city.
Right.
And it's taken us about a decade to hone it, and we're still learning. But that's how we get most of the people, about 75% of the people that come to find out about GreenPal, is just through a good old-fashioned, it's funny, you can say good old-fashioned Google search now. This has been around 25 years. Lawn mowing service nearby me, Lincoln, Nebraska. If you type that in Google, we pop up as an option.
And that's something at a high level that a local service provider just would not have the muscle to be able to get those type of
You got lawns to mow. You're going to spend half your time writing blog posts about Lincoln, Nebraska lawn mowing services. You can't.
And what's interesting, one of my philosophies has always been, if somebody else can do something better than I can, I'll outsource it.
Yeah.
And I would say the same idea here. If someone has mastered it, figured it out, they've got the whole system in place, outsource it. It just does not make sense to try to reinvent the wheel, or, at the end of the day, for one local lawn service to hire all of the skills they need to get the whole operation that you're offering them as a service as that's amazing. So in the early days, as you were getting things off the ground, I'm assuming you had bootstrapped originally, or did you take on some funding? Or
we in the very early days, since 2013, we thought that we needed to go down this path of, let's raise a round of angel funding, and then we'll go after a Series A and a Series B and so on. And I started to do that like half-assed. at the time we maybe had 20 customers, and I was going around town and pitching investors on this vision,
Right.
and I don't know. It might have just been because I had a chip on my shoulder, or I had just sold a business, and I thought this is a waste of time.
Right.
I am running around town, spending all my time trying to hustle up a few $100,000. I would rather just not take a paycheck for however long it takes and live on rice and beans and just hustle up some revenue, so we can fund this thing off of its own revenues. And so that's the path we took.
Great.
We didn't, my co-founders and I didn't take a paycheck for like 2 or 3 years. And every dime that we made, we put back out to hiring developers and hiring designers and content creators and things of that sort.
Well,
And
if any or all of you were married, I'm going to say congratulations.
well, none of us are.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. It's like you have to take inventory
Yeah.
of what your personal finances look like when you're wanting to do something like this.
Yeah.
Mark Cuban says the least amount of money you can live on, the greater your options. And that's very true when starting a new business, because your personal burn is the company's burn. Every dime that you can save, and not that like being married, like, or, it's you're in a part when you're married, you're in another
Yeah.
partnership, and maybe you
Sure. It
have
adds another
kids, and
level of complexity. Yeah.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it makes this harder. So I'm not saying you can't do this if you're married. I'm definitely not saying that, but it's just something you got to think through, and a lot of people don't make that distinction. They don't think that through. They just think, oh well. In fact, somebody asked me a couple months ago. They said, "Hey, I want to start this business, and you know, I need $150,000 a year just to survive. Like, how do I pay that while I'm starting the business?"
Not going to happen.
I'm like, you don't.
Yeah.
like, you live in you get roommates, you drive a 15-year-old car, you pay off all your credit card debt, all your student loan debt. Like these things are the business's
And
things. Like so,
absolutely,
yeah,
and you learn how to live on a budget
right.
that's next to nothing.
Right,
It's
right. So,
yeah.
and strangely, this doesn't ever get talked about. Like this, people think that they're gonna live this cushy lifestyle. And I also, it's funny in like popular culture. Like I saw a meme the other day, where it's this guy. It's a clip from a movie, and it's this guy sitting in a chair, and he's very contemplative, and he's sitting in a chair. And I think it was from Oppenheimer, and and like Oppenheimer sitting in a chair, and in the meme it says, "Me contemplating whether I should stick with my corporate America job that I hate, um, or should I just open a coffee shop?" And I'm looking at this, and I'm like, the author of this meme thinks that running a coffee shop is going to be easier than their corporate America gig. Like,
Yeah. No,
hell no, it ain't.
and the interesting thing, I come from a long line of entrepreneurs, and one thing my mom always said was, "What doesn't kill you will make you stronger."
Absolutely.
And that was her favorite saying. I'm sure she coined that from someone else, but
It's
it's
true.
absolutely true. And at a high level, entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart, and
Well, just need
just
to know
prepare
what you're getting
for,
into.
yeah, just know what you're getting into,
Yeah,
and prepare for a journey. Everything takes longer, costs more, and
and
can
it's
be
more
more
work.
challenging. But at the end of the day, I mean, I can't tell you, I love what I do. I wake up every day, I'm enjoying my world, and
Absolutely.
I did the corporate route as well. So and can you give me an idea, as you look around for other entrepreneurs looking to build a marketplace type business in traditional industries? What type of feedback or advice do you have for others that are looking to take a jump into entrepreneurship?
Yeah. So let's say you want to start a marketplace like GreenPal, but for something else, and you want to build that marketplace. I think it can be helpful, one, to have domain experience in whatever it is. So for me, I spent 15 years running a landscaping business. So then I set out to build a marketplace that made that business run smoother. That enabled me to kind of maybe start on first base. I didn't know everything, and certainly didn't like just give me a silver bullet to build this company, but it improved our odds of success. So that can be helpful if you want to start an app that makes it easy to do business with small boutique pizzerias. Maybe go work in a boutique pizzeria for a year or three in a year. That way you know
Sure.
that business from the inside out. Matter of fact, the founder of a company called Slice did that, and so that's why that's top of mind. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, if you are wanting to innovate and start a marketplace like this, um, don't look for like ways. I mean, it can be helpful to not to look for things, look for the transactions that aren't happening. Um, and what I mean by that is like these like gray area, off book, Craigslisty, kind of hacked together, cobbled together ways of commerce that people are doing that might need a platform for it. And you can actually Craigslist is a great place. And then maybe that's something that's been happening the last 10 years is startups have been picking off verticals in Craigslist. You know, we've
Sure.
been GreenPal goes after the lawn care segment. Airbnb went after sharing roommates. Thumbtack went after a long tail of home services, and the list goes on and on and on. So that's a strategy. Look for not necessarily look for like ways to make better things that are happening. Look for the transactions that aren't happening, maybe somebody can make Uber for laundry service work. Like there are a certain segment of people that are paying somebody to come to their house, pick up their laundry, clean it, and bring it back. Well, maybe you can make that work at a smaller scale. Maybe you can build a $500,000 or $1 million business year doing that, and then figure out a way to scale that. So those are two bits of advice I would give. Domain experience, get that first, and then look for transactions that aren't happening that you can kind of bring to life with technology.
Makes a lot of sense. And as far as your leadership style, from when you first started to where you are now, obviously your team has scaled, and you've had to, you know, adjust how you're interacting with the team. How would you say your style has evolved over the years?
As I've gotten older, maybe it's just I'm 44. Maybe as you get closer to death, you get more candid.
Yeah.
I'm a lot less beat around the bush. I'm a lot less like tiptoeing around.
Yeah.
I'm a lot
Just say
more,
it like it is.
yeah, say it like it is. Candid meritocracy. Everything kind of rests on its own results, and also, I made a lot of mistakes in my 20s and 30s of not understanding the point of necessary endings. And there's a really good book called Necessary Endings by a guy named Dr. Henry Cloud. When you realize that you've made a bad hire, you've brought the wrong person on, and then you try to fix them, or you try to maybe fix something in the organization to accommodate them, I mean, that's just a weak decision for the company, for the person, for their teammates, and so this idea of like pruning those people out quick is something that I've gotten a little better at in the last 5 years, and it's just because of just so many bad mistakes there.
Yeah, and just making sure it's a cultural fit, and making sure that the person has the right attitude going into it. And I think that's one of the things that I've picked up over the years, that you can't be everywhere, and hiring the best individuals possible is key to the success of your organization. Because at a high level, in my last organization, the tenure was super long, many years. And I think if you treat your people well, you give them the foundation and the benefits and the support that they need, to help them, in their own lives. Obviously coming into work every day is just that, coming into work, but at a high level, there's a lot more to an individual than just the 8 hours that they're spending in the office each day. So I would agree with you there. I think it's so
Absolutely.
important.
At the end of the day, you as the founder, you get exactly the company culture you deserve. It's a reflection of you. It's a reflection of your level of enthusiasm. It's a reflection of your level of commitment. It's a reflection of how much you give a crap about the people that work there. So if you're upset with your company culture, if you're upset with the vibe in the workplace, it's one person's fault, you. And that simple thing took me a long time to learn. Maybe 5 more years. I thought it was everybody else but me, and no, it's basically scaffolding around you, and you built it. So the sooner that you can understand that, the better you can get to, the sooner you can get to fixing it.
So let me take a step backwards and ask an interesting question. So, the town that we're in, Westboro, Massachusetts, maybe has 15 or 20,000 homes, and it's a bedroom community right outside of Boston. Can you give me are there 20,000 lawns that need to be mowed, or within that market, what portion of the homes actually would need a service like your contractors are offering?
Man, it is so it's funny how different markets operate. So if we were talking about Brandon, Florida, a bedroom community outside of Tampa, and you asked that same question, you had 30,000 family homes. Probably 90% of them all have a yard. Then you start getting into places like where I'm from, Tennessee or Atlanta. That number probably is right around there. Maybe goes up a little bit more because it's just more spread out. But then you start getting into places like Chicago. You go to a place like Cicero. I mean, the yard might be a postage stamp in the front. They may not even ever mow it, and so that
Right.
number might go down to 50%. Massachusetts and those areas, especially like really affluent areas, get a little nuanced because these areas might be grass, they may not be. So of those 15-20,000 people, wet finger in the air, probably 50%, 40%. Because it's just a denser, more compact uh, uh, kind of style of development, and we don't do very well in those areas for some reason. There's a strange thing on our platform. We drive more transactions out of a Knoxville, Tennessee, or a Huntsville, Alabama, than we do a Newark, New Jersey. And for years we've tried to figure that out. Why in some smaller towns with less population density do we have more of a network effect than in other places? And so that we want to expand internationally, but we see no reason to do it until we can figure that out. Why does a Tampa, Florida, drive more transactions than a Seattle, Washington? So these weird, it's like we're nationwide, but we're comprised of like 100 individual little micro networks that we have to figure
Sure.
out, balancing supply and demand. It's very
Yeah, 10
strange.
years into it, you're still figuring
Still
things out.
figuring
And I
it out.
think
Yeah.
every business continues to always evolve, and you
But
need
that's
to
what makes it
iterate.
fun. That's what makes
Yeah,
it fun and interesting.
absolutely. You get up every day and you have different challenges to work on. What, as far as the contractors on your platform, do you help them with pricing and modeling and maximizing revenue in terms of the data that you have? Obviously you have data sets across a lot of markets, and you can see competitive intelligence in different areas. Is that an area that you focus on?
Yeah, so it's important that we don't set pricing because
Right.
we are not the contractor. We're not in the lawn mowing business. And so when a consumer comes on to GreenPal, they're hiring a contractor through our technology, but they're not hiring GreenPal to mow their yard. So it's important to make that distinction that we don't set the pricing. Now, we have millions of transactions that have occurred through the platform, huge data sets. We're able to understand this is what the average pricing is. And so we'll surface this data not to influence how people make buying decisions or pricing decisions, but just to show it, to say, okay, consumer, you live in this zip code here, based off of 4,000 transactions in the last 12 months. Here's the average price, and then we also show that to vendors to kind of give them some, I guess, goalposts,
Sure.
some rails, and the vendor, if it's $45, if the vendor wants to quote $90, they can. It's up to them. But we don't set the pricing, but we do offer some data for them to look at when they're considering buying or considering pricing.
And for consumers, what are the main factors that they consider in choosing a lawn service? What are the, if you were to weight the different factors, what's most important, least important?
When we first started, I thought it was price, because I came from the perspective of a contractor.
Sure.
And when you are always out there competing for new business, you get jaded and you think, oh,
Yeah.
all the thing people care about is the cheapest way to do X, Y, and Z. And so that's what I thought. And so this was one of my assumptions when we started the company, was we have to build a system that delivers ultimately the cheapest price for lawn care. And so we did. We built that, and then we started to understand that no, it's not price. It's, if they hired a lawn mowing service for Thursday, they want the damn lawn mowed on Thursday. And that's actually the hardest thing out of all of this,
Yeah.
is to incentivize and to communicate to the pro and to help them organize things in such a way that they can show up on Thursday and do and will. And if they can't, to communicate that they won't and that they will be there on Friday. Like, and so the number one thing is reliability.
Yeah, and I would agree.
Yeah, do they show up when they're supposed to? Do they not drop off the face of the earth periodically and then stick their head back up? And so it's like, nobody teaches any of us how to run a small business. And so the lawn mowing business is full of entrants that get into it with no formal training. Nobody's ever been taught how to run a small business. And so the only way they learn is just with negative interactions with consumers. And eventually they get it, or maybe they don't. And the consumers are left with this kind of like, they almost have to babysit these contractors and like wrangle them in a way of like, hey, are you coming? Where are you?
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, so our system exists to solve a lot of those problems, to be a system to say, hey, you got to be at Mrs. Smith's house on tomorrow. If you don't, your rating is going to drop to this. And if you didn't show up, hey, your rating dropped. If you don't show up tomorrow, your rating's going to drop again. And if you didn't get there Saturday, hey, you're about to be deplatformed, because
Right.
that's not how this works. And so,
Yeah.
being kind of an accountability layer, to hold these folks accountable to get it done is the main thing, the reliability of it. And the price just needs to be within the market price.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And as far as the industry itself and how things are evolving, what role do you see technology playing in the future of lawn care?
Yeah, it's like we are where the home maintenance in general is where food delivery was in 2009. And so in 2009, if you wanted to order some Chinese food, you would call the Chinese restaurant. You would give them your credit card number over the phone. They would send their courier, deliver it to you, or you would give the driver cash or a check. That happened. Nowadays, you would never think of doing that. Like, you would just
Right.
do Uber Eats or DoorDash or one of these other services. Well, home services is still in 2009 for getting stuff done. You still would call somebody on the phone and maybe give them a credit card, but you would probably pay them a check or maybe a Venmo after the fact. But it's still very much an offline experience, and also a cobbled together experience. And so we're still very much in like day one of bringing this industry online. And so in terms of what role technology plays, I think it makes it where it does lower the barriers to entry even more, to where somebody can get into business for themselves, and be in a home services business, be in the lawn care business. Because now with platforms like GreenPal, you don't have to learn how to market. You don't have to learn how to You don't have to learn how to get a CRM or a merchant account, or a marketing automation, or all of these different systems that you're going to need. So that's all like there, and our platform exists for other verticals as well, from other startups. And so I think the barriers to entry go even lower. I think that I think that, like with AI, you're going to see a lot more in terms of like automation around intake.
Right.
People calling into a pro, somehow, maybe talking to an agent on the phone and communicating with them, and maybe like getting pricing that way, rather than like not getting a call back or leaving a voicemail. And so I think that'll probably happen. I think a lot of these home service professionals, lawn care services, will get more profitable as a result. I think the one man band, like the single operator, will become more prevalent. Um, and so like these 5 or 10 person companies will reduce to 3 or 2 or 1 person companies, because those barriers to entry get lower and lower. Why would you work for somebody else for $25 an hour when you can sign up on GreenPal and make $100 an hour? And so,
Right. Makes a lot of sense.
yeah, so things along that lines. The long tail of smaller, more granular operators, punching above their weight with technology, I think is we're in like the first inning of that.
And on the flip side of it, for the consumer using the GreenPal app, what is the experience like from when they first get on the app and locate a service provider until the service is provided? How does that whole service look?
Yeah, they pop their address in. They quickly see, okay, yeah, that's my house, and then they put in a few things about their yard in terms of, okay, I want it perfect, or I want it nice and neat, like what their preferences are, and then how often they want service, every week or every 2 weeks, and then they get quotes. They'll get, our goal is to get you 5 quotes in 60 seconds. And
Wow.
in most markets, we can deliver on that. And then you, as the consumer, can look over your quotes, read reviews, look at the data like we talked about earlier. What's the reliability rating, and then hire the one you want to work with. And it may not be the cheapest, it may not be the most expensive. It depends. Like if it's a rental property, you probably just want the cheapest you can get. If it's an empty lot, same thing. If it's your personal residence and you're really particular about the weeds in the beds in the backyard, you might want to go with that higher end quote with the 5-star rating. So
Sure.
it's our job to drive different options, rich data around what your options are, and then you hire them. You put your credit card in, and that goes to the vendor's merchant account, and then they charge you after the service is completed. You approve that if it's to your liking, and then if you liked what you got, you just set them up through your GreenPal account for every week, every 2 weeks, and it just happens like clockwork.
That's fantastic. Yeah, you've really nailed it on both ends. So that's
We've
great.
focused on one thing. How do you make lawn care easier, quicker, faster, cheaper, smoother? And that's all we're focused on. And we're going to keep focusing on just this one thing.
That's great. So for recent things that you've released on your roadmap in terms of features that you're really proud of, is there anything you wanted to cover and let our listeners know about?
Yeah, we are still working on this. We've got an early beta out now. So back in the early days of Airbnb, if you wanted to rent somebody's house, you would have to ping them, and they would say, they would look at your profile picture. It's available or it's not available. And like it would
Right.
be like this ping pong back and forth. And like they got a lot of heat about that. And it was like it just wasn't a magical experience. Um, and then they introduced, like, it took them a long time. This is $100 billion company. They
Right.
introduced this instant book thing where, yeah, I can book that house for that date, and I know that it'll be available when I get there. And so that is the feature we are working on. It's like, okay, you don't have to wait for the quote. You can just pop your address in, and here are 5 contractors that will definitely be there on Thursday, and they will definitely only charge you $45. And as simple as that sounds, man, it's really hard. And so
Yeah. So
that's
scheduling and availability and all of
and
that
and
is,
and and
yeah.
and, and adherence to pricing.
Yeah.
Um, without actually visiting the property. And so
Right.
using data to understand that and building the features around that. So that's what we're working on. And we are we're about halfway there. And so we're at around 300,000 people using the app. We want to be at 1 million. We feel like getting this feature right will help us get there.
Yeah, and at a high level, I mean, just the market here in the U.S. seems, tremendous. I think
Oh
you
yeah.
guys have literally not even scratched the surface of what the
We-
opportunity is.
yeah, there there's a saying, don't boil the ocean, piss in the pond.
Yep.
And that's what we try to do. There's a lot of little ponds all over the United States, and we're trying to build liquidity, build critical mass in those. And we want to go international, but there's really no reason to do that until we nail that first.
Sure. No, neat. Now, for a local lawn care professional that's looking to get up and running on the system, what does it look like in terms of what's the onboarding process look like? What are the costs? How does it all work?
Yeah, so they just come to the landing page. They put their information in about their company. That's reviewed. If they're accepted, they then put their banking information in and all of their social security information in, tax ID information in. They have to verify their identity, um, and then um, and then they start winning business. And if they keep their scores high, they can continue to use the service. And they only pay 5% of whatever transactions they do through the platform. And so that's all they pay. And they pay that to the platform as a marketing fee. And that's it. Real simple. And
Wow,
and
that is crazy good.
if they don't if they fall below certain thresholds of scoring, they're demoted in the platform or expelled, and that's all really clearly communicated, and that kind of what keeps the whole thing running, keeps it all together.
Sure. No, it's the glue that holds the whole community together.
That's right.
Obviously, it's accountability is key. And while I know you can't make promises in terms of what it'll do for someone's business, are there's certain areas of the country where the opportunity is the greatest, and can you give some ranges of what you might expect to see for a startup that's looking to get up and running?
Yeah, it all depends on how reliable they are, how aggressive they are. But we have many vendors doing over $1 million a year on the platform, and then many that are just want to pick up an extra 5 or 10 stops a week, and all in between. But it's our goal to say, okay, if you want 100 customers in a year, we can get you that. And we're really strong all in the southeast, and the Northeast. The Southeast and Northeast are really strong. West Coast is not as strong for us for some reason. I think it's because the climate is just a little different. But we're still pushing on that string. But the majority of the liquidity is on the Eastern United States.
Yeah, and just back of the envelope type of calculation. I mean, if you're running $1 million in transactions, through the platform, and 5%, so what is that, 50 grand?
Yeah,
And
I mean
fees,
you're gonna
you
pay a
couldn't.
reception. You're gonna pay a receptionist that,
Yeah, I mean, you
and
you couldn't even hire an outbound salesperson or
that's
two
right.
that you'd need to handle all of that, let alone all of the other
Tools.
value add. So you're just adding so much value for a small business.
We learned really quick, and this is another takeaway that anybody listening to this can take away. You got to add 10 times the value that you take. Um,
Yeah.
you literally have to deliver them 10x the return, or else you're not going to get adoption.
Yeah,
And
no,
we learned that really early.
you've done that, and at a high level, I think there may be a handful of people listening to this podcast that might be coming your way. So we
It sounds
really,
great.
yeah, really appreciate you taking the time out to join us on the software spotlight today. I think that was a great deep dive on the lawn care industry. And be sure to tune in at 3 p.m. today for our next live stream with Christian Brown. He's the founder and CEO of Gliwi, a comprehensive influencer marketing platform. Gliwi enables brands to discover, manage, and measure influencer campaigns at scale. And with over a decade of experience in social media marketing, Christian is a thought leader in the influencer space. He has helped numerous Fortune 500 companies leverage the power of influencers to drive engagement and sales. So we'll dive into that later in the day today and learn from his experience and background. Once again, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, at Software Oasis, to access our live streams. And be sure to visit softwareoasis.com to access our free weekly software newsletter and sign up for our upcoming weekly webinar series on Wednesday every week at 1 p.m. So once again, Bryan Clayton from Green. Thank you for
GreenPal.
GreenPal. Okay, thank you for joining us on the podcast today, and really appreciate you taking the time out of the day to bring our community up to speed.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks for having me on.